My name is Mariam Karim. I was born in Tanzania, grew up in Nairobi, and I've been in England since 1965. The history of, I think, Kenya is what brought my parents here. Kenya got independent in 1964. Having British passports, my dad decided to bring his family to England to get the children educated, so maybe came here for good education. This is a hand-painted portrait of my great-grandmother. She is one of the first pioneering families that left India and came to Kenya to build the railways for the British. She arrived with her 16-year-old son, who was my grandfather. The drawing was actually, there is a date on here which says 1950. It was painted then, and she was 105 or 106 at that stage. William Purdy, I think it says, doesn't it? And I think it's an English artist that came to Kenya or lived in Kenya. She lived to 113, and I remember her as a child walking around with her, holding her hand, and she passed away in Nairobi, and she's buried in Kenya. But she's also mentioned in the museum in Kenya as the mother of the railways, as being one of the first pioneering families. Her name was Sarb Jaan. She was born in Rawalpindi in Pakistan, which was then India, obviously. And then when she arrived in Nairobi with my grandfather, who got married in Nairobi, had 5 children, but unfortunately her daughter-in-law passed away. So she brought up the 6 children that they had together with my grandfather, and outlived her son, her husband, and had 25 grandchildren and some great-grandchildren as well. So a very big family from one son that she had. I think because they were the first pioneering families. I think so many people came from India to build the railways for the British, but 50% of those were either killed with malaria. The other 25% died with I think the lions ate them, because they used to live in tents, because she talked about living in tents. So they were strong survivors, the survival of the fittest. She, living to that great age, saw not only the railway starting, but she saw the beginnings of the line and the end of the line when it finished in Nairobi and went on to Mombasa. And she must have attended a lot of those functions and been there at the presentation of those ceremonies and things. So I think a lot of people got to know her, and she became quite famous. And I know in the Muslim community, because we belong to quite a big Muslim community, she's very well known as Mum or Mother. So I think she was a mother to a lot of people. There was an Italian historian that went to Kenya about 5 or 6 years ago. She's searched a lot of the history into the families, the Muslim families that arrived from India, and there's a whole chapter about my family. It's framed and it's in a very prominent position in my lounge, so anybody who walks in straight away sees that. And people always who know my mother say that she looks exactly like my mother, and they always say, oh, you come from a very strong line of women, so I'm hoping it's going to rub off onto some of me and my daughters.